Saw dudes, Ben Patrick 9320 wanted a chromatic fire build for Warlocks. I must oblige, but I'm adding flare to the build due to the current season aesthetic and because the helmet from Crota's End is amazing. Anyway, I decided to make an Arc Warlock build that utilizes chromatic fire and some of the weapons of sorrow so that we can become Hive gods in our own right. Chromatic fire causes precision kills with kinetic weapons to unleash a matching subclass damage explosion with various effects. Since this is an Arc build, it will apply blind to enemies. We'll have constant fire support from Arc Souls, infinite blinding capabilities, ridiculous ad clear, and insanely fast ability regen. Now you can go into Crota's End and say you'll be a D1 ad clear player. Let's get started. The only super I'm going to recommend in endgame content is Chaos Reach, which does hefty damage in a relatively short time frame. It can be used to chunk bosses, delete champions, or even assist in ad clearing. I chose to go with Healing Rift for safety in gunfights since you'll be staring down firing lanes. The melee ability will be Ball Lightning for the range damage it provides, and because it can lock down choke points without much effort. Lastly, I went with Pulse Grenade for the easy damage and for its ease of use. The Hive God aspects will be Arc Soul and Electrostatic Mine. Arc Soul makes Rift spawn little buddies for all fire team members that pass through it for 15 seconds. The Arc Amigo will fire a burst of 3 at 100 RPM, but will ramp up to bursts of 5 to 225 RPM while amplified. This Arc Acolyte aspect will also increase Rift regen rate while within 15 meters of a fire team member. Electrostatic Mine causes arc ability kills and kills against enemies that are either jolted or blinded to create ionic traces. Collecting ionic traces makes us amplified. Fragments for the build are Spark of Amplitude, Magnitude, Resistance, and Shock. Amplitude causes rapid enemy kills while Amplified to spawn an Orb of Power. Magnitude adds 2 more pulses to pulse grenades for a total of 8. Resistance grants 25% damage resistance when within 15 meters of 3 enemies or more. And finally, Spark of Shock causes grenades to apply Jolt. Now it's time to cover the Hive God Trident armor. On the helmet I stole from Crota was Kinetic Siphon, Dynamo, and Heavy Ammo Finder. For the gauntlets, I went with Bolstering Detonation, Focusing Strike, and Firepower. On Chromatic Fire, I slotted melee damage resistance and 2 variable resistance mods. On the Hive high heels, I chose to go with Elemental Charge, Insulation, and Recuperation. Lastly, Crota's Contraband Bond had Utility Kickstart, Powerful Attraction, and Bomber. Like all builds, 100 Resilience is good to have. We will be playing around our rifts, so Recovery is next in line for stat priority. Any extra points should be invested in Discipline for a feedback loop through the mod setup. Time to go over the extensive Hive arsenal at our disposal. Please use timestamps to skip around. Weapon Loadout 1 follows the Hive God theme and uses either Touch of Malice or Necrochasm, Forbearance, and Bequest. It wouldn't be a Hive God build without a Weapon of Sorrow, so you can use any one of them, especially since they are all kinetic weapons that synergize with Chromatic Fire. However, Touch of Malice and Necrochasm are the best for the build. Touch can be utilized more due to the constant healing provided by the rifts we create. Also, it can inflict Arc Blind and Poison with its Blight Launcher mode, so it can technically make Ionic Traces. Necrochasm is a very fun option because it can cause 2 explosions on precision hit, the Cursed Thrall one and Chromatic Fire's Blind. The explosion also poisons anything that survives, so it can chew through tougher units. Necrochasm is generally safer to use because it doesn't eat at your health, but use what you like. Forbearance is the ultimate wave frame grenade launcher and does our ad clear in a pinch. The healing it provides with Soul Drinker is excellent and helps in enemy dense areas. Now, if you even have a hint of Destiny lore, you'll know about sword logic, so I had to include a sword. The quest features the highest impact and charge time of adaptive frame swords and can be crafted for the best legendary sword DPS with Jagged Edge, Relentless Strikes, and Surrounded. Weapon Loadout 2 is made up of Arbalist, Posterity, and Hothead. Arbalist chews through shields at all levels of the game and has intrinsic anti-barrier rounds. It has Disruption Break for ridiculous damage after breaking a shield, making it easier to get Chromatic Fire explosions from one shot. The Catalyst grants its Genesis, which auto-reloads the gun on shield break. Posterity is a great hand cannon to have since it can be crafted with Full Shot and Frenzy for some pretty good primary damage. Because Frenzy buffs damage, handling, and reload speed, proccing Volt Shot is a non-issue. Hothead is just a good rocket launcher. I managed to get a roll with Field Prep and Explosive Light, and I haven't looked back since. Weapon Loadout 3 is composed of Chattering Bone, Iterative Loop, and either Anarchy or Thunderlord. Chattering Bone can be crafted with Kill Clip and Kinetic Tremors for some pretty insane single target and AoE damage on top of Chromatic Fire. Kinetic Tremors helps prime enemies for precision kills, and Kill Clip speeds up subsequent kills, so it's a perfect fit for the build. Iterative Loop is a DPS monster when it comes to fusion rifles because of Volt Shot. Applying Jolt to a boss and laying into them is bound to do tons of damage. The Heavy Slot Exotic is entirely up to preference. Anarchy can be used to hold off crowds or stuck onto bosses for passive DPS. Thunderlord is a Rambo gun and is very easy to use. It can ad clear, do boss damage, and has some of the highest theoretical total damage out of all heavy weapons. I love this thing. Before concluding the video, I'll go over the game loop. All you have to do to succeed with the build is click heads. By killing enemies with precision shots, you'll blind their friends, which sets you up for an easier time. Killing blinded enemies spawns ionic traces that fuel the ability loop, so feel free to use abilities whenever you'd like. The most important part is to lay down risks for the arc amigos and healing. Super whenever you need to, and play around cover. Rinse and repeat, or tithe and terrorize, or whatever Hive gods do today. This is my 4th build that was suggested to me by a viewer, and I couldn't be happier. If anything, I'm just glad that I could tie the build into the current season. I hope you all enjoy the build, and as always, thank you for watching and happy farming.